A Night at the Highland Fuel Stop. Part 1, The Night Shift. The mist hung thick over the moors, smothering everything in a colorless haze. It was the kind of night that made the world feel suspended, quiet, endless, and hollow. The neon sign outside the Highland Fuel Stop buzzed weakly against the fog, its red light pulsing like a dying heartbeat. Inside, under the hard fluorescent glow, Emma Wilson sat behind the counter, chin propped in one hand, eyes half-focused on the clock that refused to move past 1:30 a.m. The graveyard shift had become her routine. At 19, she'd learned to stop expecting excitement. The truckers who stopped by were creatures of habit, coffee, smokes, diesel, and silence. Most nights, the loudest thing in the shop was the hum of the refrigerators and the sigh of the automatic doors. Emma didn't mind the loneliness. It was safer that way. Out here, miles from the nearest village, quiet was better than trouble. She rubbed her arms against the chill. The station's heater had been broken for a week, and the cold had begun to creep in through the glass like something alive. Beyond the windows, the world was nothing but fog, white, endless, swallowing the dim orange of the street lamps until they looked like floating ghosts. Her phone sat beside the till, face down. No signal. There never was this deep into the moors. Sometimes the radio caught static that almost sounded like voices, and she'd turn it off before her imagination made something of it. Tonight was the same as every other night, until it was. A low rumble cut through the fog. Headlights emerged from the dark, twin spears of white light sweeping across the forecourt before a battered red pickup screeched to a stop by pump 3. The engine coughed, then died. Emma sat upright. Nobody ever came at this hour, especially not in that kind of vehicle. 3 doors opened. 2 men climbed out first, both in camouflage jackets and muddy boots, faces obscured by hoods. They moved with the kind of confidence that came from danger, not familiarity. The third figure, a woman, followed hesitantly. Her coat was thin, her hair plastered to her face by mist, and she stumbled as if shoved forward. The bell above the door gave a shrill ring as they entered. Emma felt the temperature drop further, though it could have been her nerves. The taller man, Jack Carter, as she'd later learn, walked up to the counter with a lazy smirk. His eyes were dark but not lifeless. There was something calculating behind them. The shorter one, Tom Hayes, lingered by the drink aisle, his fingers brushing over bottles without ever picking one. He scanned the aisles like a hawk looking for movement. "Pack of Marlboro Reds," Jack said, his accent rough, half swallowed by the cold. Emma nodded, pulling the cigarettes from behind her. Her voice cracked slightly as she asked, "Anything else?" He smiled wider, showing a gold tooth. "You alone here?" "Until 7, she said before she could stop herself. Jack's gaze didn't leave her face. Tom shifted, a soft grunt escaping him as he moved closer to the coffee machine. The woman, Sarah, hovered near the door. Her skin looked almost translucent under the fluorescent lights, her eyes wide, darting between the men and Emma like a cornered animal. As Emma rang up the purchase, Sarah's lips moved silently. Emma blinked, unsure she'd seen it right, then saw it again. "Help me." The words didn't make a sound, but they landed like a stone in her gut. She looked up quickly, meeting Sarah's eyes, pale, watery blue, filled with terror. Jack's hand shot out, gripping Sarah's arm. His smile didn't falter, but the pressure of his fingers was visible, whitening the skin beneath. "She's fine," he said, his tone mock casual. "Just tired." "Right," Emma managed. Her palms were slick with sweat. Tom grabbed a soda can and cracked it open with a loud hiss. The sound made Emma flinch. "We done?" he asked Jack, his voice low but sharp. "Almost," Jack said. He dropped a handful of crumpled notes on the counter, never looking down, his stare pinning Emma like a blade. "Keep the change." Emma fumbled with the till, pretending to count. Every instinct screamed at her to do something, to signal Sarah to stall, to press the panic button hidden beneath the counter. But her hands shook, and her mind went blank. The air felt heavy, pressing on her lungs. Jack turned toward the door, pulling Sarah with him. Tom followed, tossing the empty can onto the floor with a metallic clang. The bell jingled again as they stepped into the fog. Sarah's head turned just before the door shut. Her expression was pure, silent panic. Then they were gone. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the freezers. Emma stood frozen, staring at the door, her heart thudding in her throat. Then the fog outside swallowed the red glow of the taillights. She moved before she could think. Ducking under the counter, she slammed her palm onto the red panic button. A faint click echoed somewhere in the back room, an alert sent to the local constable's station 15 miles away. Emma rose, trembling, her breath visible in the air. The radio crackled to life suddenly, making her jump. A burst of static, then silence. She turned it off. The fog pressed against the windows, thick as milk, making it impossible to see more than a few feet beyond the glass. Minutes dragged by. She paced behind the counter, then stopped, listening. For a second, she thought she heard something, a low engine rumble in the distance. Then it was gone. The neon sign outside flickered, dimmed, then flared back to life. Emma swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. They're gone, she told herself. The police are coming, it's over. But it didn't feel over. She replayed the moment in her mind. Sarah's eyes, the silent plea, Jack's grip, Tom's restless scanning, his movements too practiced, too aware. The way they looked at her, not like customers, but witnesses. She grabbed the phone again, still no signal. The clock read 1:46 a.m. The hum of the freezer seemed louder now. The wind howled through the cracks in the windows, carrying a faint metallic sound, chains rattling or maybe something else. When the sirens finally came, they were faint, swallowed by the fog. Blue lights flickered like ghostly beacons through the mist. Relief crashed over her so suddenly she almost cried. 2 officers entered. A woman in her 40s with stern eyes, Inspector Laura Reed, and a younger man with a solid build, Constable Mark Fraser. "You're the one who hit the alarm," Reed asked briskly. Emma nodded, her voice trembling. 3 people, 2 men, 1 woman, they were just here. The woman tried to ask for help. Reed exchanged a glance with Fraser. "Show us the footage." Emma led them behind the counter, fingers fumbling as she pulled up the CCTV feed. The footage was grainy, flickering, but clear enough to show Jack, Tom, and Sarah entering the shop. Reed leaned in as the woman mouthed, "Help me," at the camera. "That's her," Emma said. "You saw it, right? She was terrified." Reed nodded slowly. "Yes, we've had a missing person report from Inverness earlier tonight. Her name, Sarah Mitchell." Emma's blood ran cold. Fraser zoomed in on the truck's license plate. "That's our pickup," he said grimly. "Stolen last week. These 2, Carter and Hayes, are suspected in multiple disappearances up north." Emma's stomach turned. Disappearances. Reed's voice hardened. Human trafficking, possibly worse. She radioed the details to dispatch, her tone clipped but urgent. "Suspects heading south along the A9. Battered red pickup, partial plate 3FK7. Female victim confirmed. Send backup to the next junction." Emma stood silent as the officers moved with precision, their voices steady against the chaos unraveling in her head. "Stay inside," Reed told her firmly as they left. "Lock the doors and don't open them for anyone. We'll find her." The sirens faded into the distance, swallowed once more by the fog. Emma locked the door and pressed her forehead against the cool glass, staring out into the whiteness. The fog shifted slightly, curling like smoke. For a second, she thought she saw movement, a shadow slipping past the pumps. Then the wind changed, and it was gone. The neon sign outside buzzed again, flickering between red and black. The clock ticked toward 2 a.m. The night was still young, but Emma's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She told herself that the police would find Sarah, that Jack and Tom were long gone, that she was safe. But somewhere deep in the mist, a truck engine rumbled, low, patient, waiting. And Emma realized she'd made a mistake thinking the night was over. Part 2, the panic button. The fog never lifted. Emma sat behind the counter, watching the white void beyond the glass. Her reflection looked pale and strange, the fluorescent lights bleaching her face until she barely recognized herself. The sirens had faded 20 minutes ago, swallowed by the moors. No one had called back. No headlights, no radio updates, Nothing but the hum of the freezers and the ticking of the clock. It was 2:20 a.m. The police should have reached the next junction by now. She tried the landline again, but all she got was static. The display blinked, line error. She hung it up too hard and winced at the sound. Her thoughts churned. The image of Sarah's eyes wouldn't leave her, wide, pleading, desperate. And Jack's smirk, that cold confidence, the way he'd asked if she was alone. She replayed every second until the air itself felt heavy with their presence. Outside, the wind changed direction. The fog shifted, drifting in slow coils past the glass. The station's neon sign flickered, then steadied, painting the snow in dull red light. For a moment, the world seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. She was starting to regret pressing the panic button. Emma paced. The linoleum creaked under her sneakers. She checked the CCTV feed again, nothing but static. All 6 cameras showed the same grainy white haze, punctuated occasionally by ghostly movement that might have been fog or not. The camera above Pump 3 blinked twice, then went black. Her breath caught. She stared at the monitor. The feed stuttered, showing a split-second flash, something dark, a shape too solid to be missed. A tall figure standing just beyond the light. Then the screen went blank again. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She backed away from the monitor, heart pounding. Maybe it was just a glitch. The weather could interfere with the signal. It had to be that. She forced herself to breathe slowly, but every exhale came out shaky. From somewhere in the distance came a low, muffled sound, an engine. It grew louder, closer. Emma froze, staring at the glass doors. Headlights flickered through the fog like twin eyes, cutting weak beams across the wet asphalt. A vehicle was approaching. The same deep rumble she'd heard before. Oh God. She ducked behind the counter, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The headlights cut across the pumps and stopped. She could see the faint silhouette of a truck. Maybe the police had returned. Maybe. But the shape of the truck, it looked the same. Red pickup, dented fender, the same one. She crawled to the security monitor again, switching to the exterior feed. The cameras struggled through static, but she caught a brief, jerky glimpse, the driver's side door opening. A man stepped out. Camouflage jacket, tall, broad shoulders. Jack Carter. Her pulse roared in her ears. She couldn't breathe. Then a second figure emerged from the passenger side, Tom Hayes. His movements were fast, jittery, his head snapping from side to side like a predator scenting prey. The third door opened, and Sarah stumbled out, still in her tattered coat. Her arms were bound with what looked like tape. Jack shoved her toward the station. "No," Emma whispered, backing up. "Please don't come back here." The bell above the door jangled. The sound cut through her like a knife. She ducked low behind the counter, pressing herself against the cold tile. Her fingers brushed the panic button again, though she knew it was useless now. Footsteps, heavy boots on linoleum. The sound of breathing, close, deliberate. "Even in, sweetheart," Jack's voice drawled. "We forgot our smokes." Her lungs locked. The urge to scream clawed at her throat. Tom's voice came next, sharp and impatient. "The cops are sniffin' around up the road. We saw the lights fade out. You talked to them." Jack chuckled. "Course she did. Good little worker, aren't you?" Emma stayed silent. Her hands found a wrench someone had left under the counter. It was small, cold, almost comically useless, but she gripped it like a weapon. Footsteps circled the counter. She heard the faint squeal of Sarah's shoes, a muffled sob. Jack's tone darkened. "You told them about her, didn't you?" Silence. The sound of something metallic hitting the floor. Tom dropping a can or maybe his knife. Sarah whimpered. Jack slammed the counter hard. The sound echoed through the station. "I asked you a question, sweetheart." Emma flinched, but she stayed hidden. Her breath came fast and shallow. If she moved, they'd see her. If she stayed, they'd find her. Then blinding light. A flood of blue-white from outside, cutting through the fog. The sound of tires on gravel. Sirens again, closed this time. Jack cursed. "Move, get her in the truck." Tom yanked Sarah toward the door. The bell jangled as they shoved outside. Jack followed, pausing just long enough to glare through the shop toward the counter. For one horrible second, Emma thought he'd seen her. Then he was gone. The truck roared to life, headlights sweeping across the front windows. Tires screeched, mud sprayed. The engine faded into the fog as sirens wailed louder, closer, then stopped abruptly. Emma stayed crouched until she heard the door open again. "Emma Wilson," a voice called, a woman's, steady, commanding. Emma rose shakily. It was Inspector Reed, flashlight in hand, uniform slick with rain and frost. Behind her, Constable Fraser scanned the lot with his rifle raised. "They came back," Emma gasped. "They Sarah, she's still with them." Reed's expression hardened. "We saw the pickup heading north this time. They must have doubled back to throw us off." She turned to Fraser. "Get the roadblock set up at Drumachter Pass." Fraser nodded and jogged off, radio crackling. Reed turned back to Emma. "Are you hurt?" Emma shook her head. "No, but they knew I called you." Reed exhaled slowly, the fog from her breath catching the flashlight beam. "They always do. These bastards are clever. You did the right thing pressing that button." Emma looked past her, out into the mist. The red glow of the station light seemed to flicker more violently now. "Are you sure you can find them? He looked right at me." Reed didn't answer right away. "We'll find them. But until we do, you need to stay inside, keep the doors locked. We'll leave a patrol car outside till morning." She turned, speaking into her radio again, voice clipped and professional. Emma watched her silhouette disappear into the fog. A few minutes later, the sound of another engine joined the wind, a police Land Rover idling outside. Emma locked the door again and leaned against the counter, exhaustion settling over her like a weight. Her hands trembled from the adrenaline dump. It was over. Or supposed to be. She poured herself a cup of coffee, the burnt smell oddly comforting. The Land Rover's headlights cast faint beams through the window, 2 steady circles of light. She took a sip and tried to slow her breathing. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The lights outside never moved. The Land Rover stayed where it was, engine rumbling faintly. Emma frowned. She couldn't see silhouettes inside, just the glow of the dashboard. She hesitated, then stepped toward the window. The fog had thinned slightly. She could just make out the outlines of the vehicle. Her heart stopped. The license plate was wrong. It wasn't the police Land Rover. It was the pickup. Its engine idled softly, almost mockingly. Headlights steady, silent, waiting. Emma stumbled backward. The mug slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. The headlights blinked once, like a wink, and went dark. The fog swallowed everything. She backed into the counter, fumbling for the wrench again, her breath ragged. Her mind screamed run, but her legs wouldn't move. The radio crackled suddenly, a faint burst of static. Then, through the noise, came a voice, distorted calm, almost amused. "Good girl, Emma," Jack's voice said. "You stay put, we'll be seeing you soon." The line went dead. Outside in the fog, an engine revved, and then faded, as if retreating. But the echo of his words lingered in the hum of the freezers, in the flicker of the neon light. Emma sank to the floor behind the counter, clutching the wrench, staring at the dark windows. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was listening. Part 3, The Fog Never Ends. By 3:00 a.m., the world had gone silent again. Emma sat on the floor behind the counter, clutching the wrench so tightly her knuckles burned. The shattered coffee mug lay in pieces near her feet, its dark stains spreading like blood across the linoleum. Her breathing had slowed, but the pounding in her chest hadn't eased. Every sound, every hum, creak, or gust set her nerves on edge. Outside, the fog was thicker than ever. The windows had turned into mirrors of white, reflecting the store's cold, fluorescent light back at her. Somewhere out in that void, an engine had come and gone. She'd heard it. She was sure of it. But now, nothing. She forced herself to stand. The air felt heavy, close. She could smell oil and rain leaking in through the doorframe. She checked the lock twice, then 3 times. The handle was slick with condensation. The CCTV monitors were all static again, each one flickering faintly, buzzing like dying insects. She hit the side of the main console. No change, just static and the occasional flash of movement that might have been her reflection or something else. The radio was dead. Even the hum of the freezers seemed to have dulled. The silence was absolute. Emma rubbed her arms, trying to will warmth back into them. Her phone was useless, but she checked it anyway. Still no signal. The clock above the counter read 3:07 a.m. A knock startled her, one sharp, heavy rap against the glass door. She froze. The wrench slipped slightly in her sweaty hand. Another knock, louder this time. "Who's there?" she called, her voice trembling. No answer. She moved slowly toward the door, her shoes sticking slightly to the linoleum. The mist outside pressed against the glass, making it impossible to see anything beyond a few inches. Then a figure appeared. A woman, thin, hair damp and stringy, coat torn. Sarah. Emma gasped. She was alive. "Please," Sarah mouthed through the glass, her hands pressed flat against it. Her lips were blue, her eyes wide with fear. "Let me in." Emma hesitated only a second before fumbling with the keys and unlocking the door. The bell above it jingled faintly as Sarah stumbled inside, collapsing onto the floor. Emma knelt beside her. "Are you hurt?" Sarah shook her head weakly, shivering uncontrollably. "They're gone," she whispered. "I ran when they stopped for fuel down the road. They..." Her voice broke. Tears spilled down her face, leaving faint trails through the grime. Emma helped her to a chair near the counter. She fetched a blanket from the staff room and draped it over her trembling shoulders. "You're safe now," Emma said, though she didn't believe it. "The police will come back soon." Sarah's gaze darted toward the windows. "You called them?" "Yes, they were here earlier. Inspector Reed. She said they were setting up a roadblock." Sarah's face went white. "Reed!" Her voice was a whisper, but filled with something like disbelief or fear. "Inspector Laura Reed." Emma nodded. "You know her?" Sarah swallowed hard. "She's not real." Emma blinked. "What?" Sarah's eyes were glassy, far away. "They make them up. The people in the fog, they look like police, like anyone you trust, but they're not." She gripped Emma's wrist with surprising strength. "They come from the moor. They wait until the fog's thickest, then they..." She stopped. Her head tilted slightly, as if she'd heard something. Emma followed her gaze. Through the glass, faint blue lights pulsed, like police sirens diffused by mist. Sarah's hand tightened painfully around her wrist. "Don't open the door." The lights grew brighter, the hum of an engine following. Tires crunching gravel. Then came the faint sound of a radio, the clipped, confident tone of Inspector Reed's voice. "Emma Wilson, this is Inspector Reed," it called from outside. "Step away from the door, we're coming in." Sarah shook her head violently. "That's not her." Emma stared at the glass, heart hammering. She could see shadows moving beyond the fog, 2 silhouettes, the shape of a vehicle's roof, lights flashing blue and white. The voice came again. "Emma, it's safe now, let us in." Emma's mouth was dry. "She sounds real," she whispered. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. They always do. The bell above the door jingled softly, though neither of them had moved. The door handle turned once twice, then stopped. Emma's pulse roared in her ears. "The lock," she whispered. "I locked it." Sarah didn't answer. She was staring at the CCTV monitor behind the counter. One of the feeds, camera 4, had come back to life, showing the parking lot. The patrol car was there, but no one was inside. The driver's door hung open, empty. Then the feed flickered. The 2 officers were standing right outside the door now, motionless. Their faces were obscured by fog. The way they stood, too still, too symmetrical, made Emma's stomach twist. Sarah's voice was barely audible. "They're wearing faces that aren't theirs." The lights outside flickered, then died. The fog thickened, swallowing the figures. The CCTV feed cut to black again. A heavy thud hit the side wall of the shop, then another, closer. Something moved along the outer wall, slow, dragging footsteps. The hum of the lights inside the store dimmed. The air grew colder. Sarah stood abruptly. "They'll come through the back," she said. "They always do." Emma's heart pounded as she followed her toward the stockroom. The emergency exit at the rear was locked from the inside with a heavy bolt. The door rattled once, softly. Then harder, metal groaned. Emma grabbed Sarah's arm. "We can hide." The door shuddered violently, the bolt bending. Sarah screamed as the metal tore loose and the door flew open. Fog poured in like liquid. For a second there was nothing, just mist and darkness. Then a shape emerged, a man's outline, tall, familiar, camouflage jacket glistening with frost. Jack Carter smiled through the fog. "Miss us?" Emma screamed, slamming the stockroom door shut and jamming a broom handle through the handles. The two women stumbled back, breath visible in the cold. The wood splintered under a single blow, then another. Jack's voice drifted through the cracks, calm and mocking. "We told you we'd be seeing you." Tom's laugh echoed faintly behind him, high and cruel. The broom handle snapped. The door burst open. Jack stepped through, his face pale, eyes shining unnaturally bright in the dim light. Behind him, the fog twisted around Tom like a living thing. Sarah darted forward, grabbing a metal rod from the shelf and swinging wildly. It connected with Jack's shoulder. He staggered but didn't fall. He grinned. "You should have stayed quiet," he hissed. He lunged forward, shoving Sarah to the floor. Emma swung the wrench, hitting his arm. He snarled, turning on her. She stumbled backward into the main shop, knocking over a rack of crisps. Tom followed, his knife glinting. "Pretty little hero." He sneered. Before Emma could move, headlights blazed through the front window. The roar of an engine filled the air. Tires screeched metal on glass. The pickup truck smashed through the storefront in a blinding explosion of light and sound. The world became chaos, shattering glass, the scream of bending steel, the rush of cold air. Emma hit the floor as debris rained around her. When she opened her eyes, the truck was half inside the shop, smoke rising from the hood. The windshield was shattered. Jack lay slumped across the counter, motionless. Tom was gone. The fog began to pour in through the broken windows, thick and luminous. Sarah crawled toward Emma, coughing, eyes wild. "It's not over," she gasped. "The fog, they're part of it, you can't." Her words broke off. She froze mid-crawl, her eyes widening. Her breath stopped. Emma reached for her, but Sarah's body was already stiff, frost creeping up her neck, sealing her lips in a thin sheen of ice. The fog around her shimmered faintly, pulsing like breath. Emma staggered to her feet. The radio crackled faintly behind the counter. She turned toward it. "Emma Wilson," a voice said, soft, familiar, calm. "Inspector Reed." "This is the police. Everything's under control now. Please remain where you are." The fog outside glowed faint blue, and through it she saw shapes moving, figures in uniform, faces pale and identical. Their steps made no sound. Emma backed away slowly until her heel touched something soft, Jack's hand. It moved. She screamed, stumbling backward, wrench raised. But his eyes opened, and for the first time he looked afraid. "Don't let them in," he whispered hoarsely. "You don't know what they are." Then his body went still. The frost covered him completely. The radio hissed again. "We're here now, Emma," Reed's voice said. "You did the right thing." The fog pressed against the windows like a living wall. Shapes flickered within it, smiles, faces, hands. Emma stood frozen as the glass began to crack. Lines spread like spiderwebs. The hum of the freezers died. The neon sign outside flickered once, twice, then darkness. The last thing Emma heard was the faint jingle of the bell above the door. And then silence. At dawn, the Highland fuel stop stood silent in the mist. The front windows were shattered, the counter crushed, the till open. No bodies, no blood, no footprints leading away. Only frost patterns on the glass, shaped like reaching hands. And on the CCTV footage, still looping after sunrise, a single image remained. Emma, standing alone behind the counter, smiling faintly toward the camera. Her breath visible, her eyes pale blue.